for the Oregon Academy and Workforce Development. We have the presentation there. We have the WTDB work group updates. We have the industry consortia, steam energy workforce coalition. And then we have some WTDB business and discussion we need to go over with the board. It really, I'm going to ask everybody who's presenting. We really need people to be tight on their time. You do need that 3 to 4 o'clock time in our agenda.
Yeah, we're using time.
So I want to ask, do we have a quorum?
We do have a quorum.
We do, great. Are there any public?
There are not any public comments.
Leah, you want to jump in first?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and get started. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to walk us through a few quick housekeeping updates today. As board administrator, I want to make sure that all the tools and information you have helps you stay engaged and informed. So I wanted to start with a quick refresher on our WTDB website. It has been under construction for a little while. I can find the screen that has the website. Woo! I just wanted to go ahead and share. Our website is one that folks visit for a purpose. So I want to make sure that when you get here, you know where you're going. This is our homepage. It's a landing page for most things, but these lovely tabs up at the top are where you're going to need to be. I'm going to start by showing you our About Us page. Our About Us page is your landing page for all member resources. I wanted to make it a one-stop shop for you guys, as quick to get to the high priority documents as we can. This is right on our About Us page, and it has all of our highly sought after documents, and then you can scroll down and there's more here. But the thing I want to show you real quick is our brand new updated 2026 board member resources. This is going to be your one-stop shop for links to get everything on our website as quickly as possible. Starting in 2026, that's going to be in every calendar invite. And if you click on one of them, it'll open it up and let you see our 2025 bylaws. Okay. All right, so moving on, it's going to take you to all of those places, get you there real quick. The next thing I wanted to share with you is an update on accessibility standards. In 2026, all state agency documents are going to be required to meet the web accessibility guidelines. That basically states that things on our website are easy to access, accessible, and can be read by screen readers and different assistive devices. So one of the things that we've started updating is our agendas to make sure that we are following that accessibility guideline. You'll see these rolled out next year. Just wanted to give you an update. And then a quick reminder that our workday trainings are due at the end of the year. We've got only about 5 folks left. And then the last thing I wanted to show you is a quick overview of what our board looks like right now. So we are currently at about 15 folks from business, government, and I just wanted to share with you some of the stuff that we track as board admins. So I have been keeping track of all of the different people on our board, their qualifications, when their terms start, when their terms end. Todd, I'm going to let you jump in there in case there's anything else I missed about this spreadsheet specifically. But I just wanted to make sure that you guys know what happens on the backside of the board. And
I'll say we are so blessed and thankful that we have now. She keeps copious notes, tracks so many things behind the scenes for y'all, and I think it really allows us to stay on top of the work and communicate, for example, with the governor's office around membership requirements, and it gets pretty involved in terms of trying to comply with the federal regulations in terms of membership. It's a challenge for every state board in the country. But just hats off to Leah. Thank you so much for all the work that you do.
Thank you. And of course, if you guys ever need anything, I am your go-to person. Happy to help with anything that you guys need in the new year. Whether it's finding your workday logins or figuring out what your OR number is, it's my job. So please ask me. All right, that's it from me.
I'll jump in a minute first. But before I get into that, we have two new board members that I would love to have introduce themselves. Frank, if you want to start.
Sure. I'm Frances Robbins, and I'm the owner of New Start Psychiatry and TMS. We have outpatient mental health services in Salem and in Portland. And I'm also a nursing educator at Chemeketa with the LP and the RN of Prince program.
Yeah, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Hi, my name is Alice Cadman. I work at Land Research. I'm the director of manufacturing there in the Tualatin facility. I've been in the semiconductor space since 2000. Previously, I went to West Point and
Thank you. Welcome. Okay, so shortening that, the 2026 talent assessment is in play. That work will sort of ramp up as the contract comes together. We did award the contract to Echo Northwest. The Talent Summit, mark your calendars if you don't have it already marked, for May 19 at the Salem Convention Center in 2026 is where we'll have our next Talent Summit. The RFP for the Continuous Improvement Committee is the final draft and hanging out now with Hex Procurement Department. Conversations are happening between them and I, so look for that RFP to go out in the next 30 days or so. Work on the WTDB Strategic Innovation Grants is also happening behind the scenes. There'll be staff coming back to the January Executive Committee meeting to share more about the development of that. That is based, or those that are based on feedback that staff received at the last Executive Committee meeting. Just a little heads up. There have been some recent developments that required us to sort of kick the Future Ready report out today, and it'll shift to January exec as well. And I think I will stop there and toss it over to Charlie. Because of some of the things that have transpired as of late, we decided to nix the individual chair and co-chair report outs for the committees to save time. But there's an important thing that Charlie, as one of the co-chairs of the Workforce Ready Committee, wants to raise up and say in short order here. So Charlie, you have the floor.
Short order, hard to do with Charlie. With the Workforce Readiness Committee, it has been a group project to actually put together our report that would go then to the WTDB and then potentially also be used as a vehicle to transmit information to both business industry and interested parties about what we've been doing as a general board and what we specifically have been doing as the WRC in regard to awarding employability skills. Needless to say, we've had an amazing board. We've had 20 to 25 people average attendance at all of our meetings. And while we sectionalized the report into the various areas, reaching the assistance of BenCat, Sorala, and let's say Shally, Eric, Juneman, Sherry Clark, of course, her engagement. We drafted up the sections, presented them to our membership, and we got amazing feedback. In fact, a lot of the feedback we wanted to integrate into the report. So we have chosen not to submit the report in December. We're going to kick that into January. And my sense is that we really would like to give all of you a document that then you could then be also spokesmen for the Workforce Talent Development Board. Moving forward, when you're having a conversation that says, not really sure what the Workforce Talent Development Board is doing, so let me help you out. Okay. Thank you.
Did you want to announce the other?
Oh, yes, the other one. Yeah. Speaking of Sherry, Todd and I had a conversation yesterday with Sherry because it was Sherry Clark. For any of you who don't know, the employability skills rubric essentially has been architected by Sherry Clark, and she's done phenomenal, passionate work, supported through ODE grant, which we're immensely thankful. But Sherry is truly, truly the backbone of how we've gotten as far as we have, putting her background in education as well as workforce and work systems and so forth. But we are giving Sherry the WTDB Driver of the Year award for her relentless passion and pushing further to OES. And I'm looking across at Tony, who has spent many an hour and so forth with Sherry and her great work and so forth. And so I told her what people do is have a quick applause. You can hear it. She's over in Coeur d'Alene with her granddaughter shopping. So anyway, Sherry Clark, Driver of the Year.
Just real quick, I want to remind folks that since it's a hybrid meeting, got to speak a little louder for folks to hear us online. We're at a little bit of a disadvantage with how our audio is set up today, so make it as easy for them as possible. Thank you, guys.
Hey, Gail and Bob. I have a request.
Got it. And yeah.
Okay, great. So we're gonna pivot to Julia first, then come back on that topic. Good.
So we have we have performance data. Hey, Julia, the floor is yours.
Working.
Thanks. Can everybody hear me?
Can Julia hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
We can't.
Oh, we can hear you.
Well,
The issue is that the volume's all the way up. Julia, will you try speaking?
yes. Hello.
Can you hear us, Julia?
Yes. Can you hear me?
We can't hear her. Your little sound.
Okay. Well, you still can't hear me?
You guys have got captions, if that's okay.
Have you cranked the mic on your laptop, Julia?
I don't think it's her, unfortunately. I think it's this room.
Okay. Do you want me to go ahead and start?
Yes, please. I think I fixed it.
Okay.
Nope, I made it worse. Okay.
Great. Aaliyah, you're going to run the slides. Okay, I'm going to start with an update on Workforce Pell. First, my name is Julia Pontoni. I'm the Director of the Office of Workforce Investments at the Higher Education Coordinating Commission.
Can you find your phone and put it on speaker?
All right, give me 1 second. Let me see if I can.
You want me to try talking now?
I think we can hear Julia loud and clear.
I know, but I don't think that the room can hear me.
Do you know if that device has a remote control its volume?
Hybrid meetings are always a challenge, especially when you travel to different locations that are not your home.
Every location
It's
is
like
different.
somebody else's kitchen.
That's a great.
Yeah.
Okay, can you say test and see if people can hear?
Hey, Julia, can you try to?
Can you guys hear that at all?
We shut it up, but we don't give it to Aaliyah. We put her on the phone. Thank you. Sorry.
Oh, it's okay. This troubleshoot.
Is there a mic that it can connect to?
The only thing I can think of is have it connect to my own computer.
Does this operate the soundbar?
It does, but it's on. Like,
Oh, that is.
it's at 100%. There's. So we have audio in the room, but we don't have, it's not, the sound doesn't go up very high. Yeah, sorry.
In the world of equity, where we will all read what she's going to be saying.
Yeah. I'm in my glasses, so I can't even.
All right. Let me ask Todd. Pause for dramatic effect.
Yeah, look at that.
You guys are back.
Yeah.
Sounds like.
Thank you. So Gail and Bob will go, and it's not quite the sound issue. They can hear us as long as we speak relatively full. So as I'm doing.
You guys have a room different.
Just as you know, we got 7 minutes to be back on time. So
Be really brief. I'm Bob Gillen, kind of been research director. Years and honored to be with Gail today. I love to present with Gail. We do this about once or twice a year. And I love to present with her because she is the pro. And I always kind of go first and opine for a few minutes and talk about some few exciting things. I always have to go next and she does the hard data and then that way she has to answer. We all sit down really quick after 2 weeks. I want to talk about a few things. Go to the next slide. A few announcements. So I'm going to skip to the launch to try to catch us up a little bit. But next Thursday, circle your calendars. We're gonna, I just hate to, so excuse me. Circle your calendars, December 18th, we're gonna publish our long-term industry and occupational projections. If you look at the materials today, some of the 2030 projections are in there. Oregon is one of the states that does them every year because of the fast changing technology. I mean, things change overnight in the workforce and the economy. And so we'll be publishing our 2034 projections next Thursday, 10 a.m. I believe. I think Gail did her podcast yesterday. We're all fired up and ready to go. It's really important information. It's less important about how many exact jobs we expect to create in 10 years. It's more important, you'll all recognize this, it's the mix of jobs because of the evolving industries and occupations changing, the impact of AI and such. In fact, there are declining industries that will sometimes need more jobs than the increasing industries because of the aging workforce in those declining. And so that nuance is played out in these projections. Next slide. Something I talked a little bit about AI, something that we're working on in Oregon. I sit on an advisory board for Ohio on a new tool to track artificial intelligence into the economy of the workforce. There's a age-old question. How many jobs does a new technology or AI create? How many does it destroy? How big the disruption is going to be? Does it create better paying jobs, lower paying jobs? Which rungs of the workforce ladder is it going to tear down? Which is going to add? And so this is really exciting. It's happening in Ohio. We've been working on it for about a year and a half. And there's a couple of people in this room that know a little bit about it. I've shared a couple of emails and a few other folks. It started in Ohio. We have data now that we're starting to test. It's starting to happen in New Jersey and Arkansas. And I'm really hopeful that we can do it here in Oregon. I learned yesterday, working with the National Science Foundation on this, and we always forget what IRIS stands for, the Institute of Research and Innovation in Science at the University of Michigan, as leaders on this, and they really would like to kick this off in Oregon. A little concerned that we didn't have enough AI R&D to really track in the past school. And so essentially how this works is we follow students exposed to that technology and the principal investigators in those institutions to their next job in the workforce. And we track and see how that's impacting the workforce. I was a little worried that in Oregon, we didn't have enough investment. I got this information yesterday. From 2011 to 2020, Oregon Research Organizations received over $720 million in AI-related research investments as identified by the industry of ideas approach. That's what we call this, the industry of ideas. Because artificial intelligence doesn't just hit one sector, doesn't hit just 3 sectors, it hits all sectors. We always talk about industry codes, and it expands and diffuses everywhere. So we're excited about that, starting to build partnerships, starting to have conversations. And I think this would be a really great partnership to form with the workforce board going forward. I'm gonna, next few slides, I'm just gonna go really quick. You've heard about the headwinds. When I talk, I'm not even talking about the tailwinds. There are tailwinds pushing Oregon. I'm just go straight to the headwinds just to move us up a little bit. I'm gonna go to the bolded one, the last one, aging population, workforce, and slower population growth, and that's the big one. We've all seen the charts about we have a faster death, the more deaths than births recently, and we have slower in-migration. Looks like in-migration is actually going to pick up a little bit, but not to the heyday that it used to be. We presented this a million different ways. The 65 and older population percentage as we are compared to the rest of the country. We kind of look at it and say, go back to 1980, the median age in Oregon was, anybody guess 1980? About 30 years old. The median age today is, I think, 40.8 or something like that. And technically, I think we're behind Montana, but you've heard some other pundits in the state say we are the oldest west of the Missouri, Mississippi divide. We are, by the time the ACS or the American Community Surveys and the Census Bureau puts out the data, they'll tell us it was probably the oldest out of us. The interesting thing, you talk about the birth death rate, this is about the last thing I'll say about this, is back in 1980, when the median age was 30, the key birth year was the early 20s. So that's when most of the people happening births. Now, where the median is 40 years old, the peak birth years are right at about 30 and it's starting to get into the 30s, which is amazing. And you can only face that for so long. And so the birth death is going to be even a bigger challenge going forward, which makes the alignment of our workforce so important. You heard it out there talking about the kind of the trades that they need. And it's so important that this body does. And so I'm excited to see the action today and share with you more. But I'll hand over to Gail and talk a little bit about what she sees in the data. And finally, the Bureau of Labor Statistics data on rolling data. And we're really excited that she's got some of that. She's also going to talk about some dates, I think, in the future.
Yes, thank you. That it's 1:59 and change. Do you want me to go at all? Okay, I will be as quick as I can in the interest of time, I promise. So as we move over to the next slide, I just wanted to start with a data point that picks up on what Bob was talking about, and because I'm asked about artificial intelligence quite a bit right now. There really isn't, and to your point, I'm glad there are efforts underway because there really isn't a lot of concrete, consistently collected and comparable across states and areas data related to artificial intelligence right now. There's very little of it. This comes from the U.S. Census Bureau, their Business Trends and Outlook survey, and shows as of the last part of November, companies reporting did they use AI in their business operations. So Oregon was among the top 10 states nationally for that, with a rate reported at 21%. The highest was about 25%. And there were a couple of states that are below 10%. So obviously, and we'll hit on this in the next slide as well, it doesn't say anything about how it's being used, like what's the intensity of use? Is it actually, to Bob's point, is it causing disruption or is it being used as a productivity piece that helps? Like, for example, in our shop, we have folks who are using ChatGPT to help them clean up and get their scripts for R, which is an open source statistical package, to get those done faster. So instead of spending 3-4 hours trying to troubleshoot a problem that's in that, they run it through there, they get it, and then they can move on to their next thing. So in our shop, for example, it's helping us be more productive. We all still have our jobs, but it's helping us be more efficient in those jobs, right? But there are other places where it could be disruption. And so we don't have any sense of that yet. What I do have here, and this is US data, looks at the, again, adoption or usage rates, not adoption, usage rates by state. This is also by industry. So high variation across states, high variation across sectors of the economy. So manufacturing, about 10%. 10% of companies report using AI at some level. But then you get into like information and it's 4 times the rate. It's at 40%. One thing I will note is that the top or the orange dot, it's the top in every single one. That's their expected future rate. So you see that increasing across the board. And like I said, there was actually a supplement that happened. The Census Bureau had the additional resources to be able to do an in-depth supplement about AI usage in March of 2024. So they started talking about, this is whether we're using it alongside folks or using it to replace folks in a space that's changing so quickly. I don't feel like it's relevant for something that's more than a year and a half old now. So we're kind of stuck with these for now, but just wanted to hit on that since it was something that Bob talks about, and I'm hoping there will be much more that we see in the future related to it. All right, switching quickly to, I want to say the current, but it's the most current labor market picture that we have in Oregon. And I say that because many of you are aware that there was an extended federal government shutdown. And because of that, the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, who we work directly in partnership with to create our monthly employment numbers, or to interpret, that's employers report it. There's, it's a business survey of employers report their data. And then also the U.S. Census Bureau, which is also furloughed, along with the Bureau of Labor Statistics, calls households on behalf of the BLS and conducts a household survey to find out who's working, who's not working, but looking for work. So those were delayed due to the furloughs. We're catching up, but just the other day, we were able to release September data. So we're coming down to the end of the year. Typically, we would be in November, but that's not going to come out until January. We should be caught up again, pending no more lapses in appropriations by the end of January. So September is the most current month that we have. And in that month, Oregon employers added 3,300 jobs to non-farm payrolls. I just want to point out that seesaw pattern. I'm seeing so gains, losses, gains, losses. It's been really uneven in a number of ways. But if you took this whole span of 2 years, the total net gain in jobs in 2 whole years is 2,300. And 3,300 of that, I just told you, was last month. So not a lot of job growth happening in Oregon. You can see alongside with the averages for a monthly gain for each year, you can see how that's dramatically slowed and actually turned negative. As we move to the next slide, quickly hitting on, I think anybody who's talked to me in the last 2 years has heard me say this, so apologies for the repeat, but the gains that we do have over the past year, which actually we have a net loss, we're down 12,100 jobs over the year. But the gains we do have are highly concentrated in private healthcare and social assistance, which has added a little more than 11,000 jobs. Manufacturing, and given the venue we're in today, I will hit on this a little bit harder. Manufacturing has lost nearly 10,000 jobs over the past year. It's a decline of 5%. Now, I do want to emphasize quickly that what's happening in Oregon is not unique to Oregon. It's also happening nationally. Like, for example, in September, U.S. employers added 119,000 jobs. Half of those gains were in private healthcare and social assistance. So it's happening nationally too. Nationally, manufacturing has been losing jobs for more than 2 years. What's happening here just needs to be a bit more pronounced. So as we switch to the next slide, again, given that we're here, I wanted to talk about manufacturing. Whether you use the seasonally adjusted or the unadjusted number, it rounds to the same big round loss of 5% over the year. We don't have published items for every single part of manufacturing. There's so much of it, and we're a relatively small state, so we don't get the kind of detail that you get in a bigger state. But you can see very clearly that computer and electronic product manufacturing, which includes semiconductors, is a big piece of what's going on. However, it's not all of it. So again, there's other things that you can't see here because you don't have line items for it. But if we're looking at losses between 4,000 and 5,000, just there's still the other half that's showing here, like mostly smaller but widespread losses across all areas, like wood products, transportation equipment manufacturing, paper manufacturing, things like that. Switch in again. I'm going to switch over to looking at the labor force. So the jobs numbers are based on a survey of business establishments. The labor force data, little context, this is people, to be in the labor force, you need to be 16 or older. You need to be residing in Oregon, regardless of whether or not this is self-employed, this is people who are, sitting in Oregon, but working remotely for a company that's in Georgia or whatever. So there's that employed part of the labor force and the unemployed part of the labor force. So in a labor force of 2.2 million people in September, 5.2% of that labor force was unemployed. And as we flip to the next one, instead of like that broad conceptual, like what does that mean? That means that there are about 115,000 people in Oregon who want to find a job, have been actively looking for a job in the past 4 weeks. They're available and able to take one if it's offered to them, but they haven't yet. And that number is at the highest it's been outside of a recession in a decade. The last time it was this high was in 2015. And it's not been one big thing, but it's been just a series of small changes that's pushed up the unemployment rate by a full percentage point over the past year. Next is why. So one thing that's also important to know, and I know many of you have heard me say this as well, but for anybody who's new to the room or the conversation, whether or not you're counted as unemployed has nothing to do with whether or not you receive unemployment insurance benefits. It's all about your job seeking activity. So there can be people who are unemployed because they lost their job through no fault of their own. Those are typically the people that we would think of as being eligible for UI benefits. There's also people who maybe graduated from college and weren't working while they were in school, but now they're out there looking for their first job and haven't found it yet. Those would be an example of new to the workforce folks. And then there's people who are unemployed because they left their job without another one lined up and they're still looking for their next opportunity. Now, this is so I'm starting as we finish this up to talk about, I'm looking to decide whether or not there's economic distress and how much of it. So now we've seen that the share of all unemployed workers who are unemployed because they've lost their jobs is now the majority. That's creeping up. So I don't want to say good or bad, but there are some other reasons that are not as much of a sign of economic distress. If people are unemployed because they're leaving their job without another one lined up, that could be a sign that they think there's a bunch of opportunities out here for me, right? So to see that we've moved to the majority of folks who are unemployed being unemployed because they lost their job, and that the number, it's never a huge number that are unemployed for volunteer, but it's about as low as it gets. That's something to keep an eye on. Next slide. Outside of our own monthly things, that the job numbers and the unemployment rate, there are other things that I'm looking at as regularly as we can get them right now to help us gauge, again, like what are the signs of economic distress? Where are we at? So if you think about a time where we have job losses or very slow job growth, and there is there's also more people who are unemployed because they're losing their jobs, the next thing you kind of expect to happen is a sustained uptick in first time or continued claims for unemployment insurance. The first time is not really doing so. 2020 and 2021 are taken out of this because they're such wild outliers. But this shows you the same time of the year every year from 2019 to now. And we're in a typical range for first time claims for unemployment insurance, averaging about 4,600 a week so far this year, which is pretty typical. But again, I've just gotten done telling you that we've added essentially no jobs for the past 2 years. But we're not seeing a sustained, more rapid uptick. As you go to the next slide, the flip side of this is that the ongoing or continued claims, people who are coming back again and again because they still haven't found a job and are still claiming unemployment, that's running about 19% higher this year than it was last year. So we're averaging about 33,500 claims per week that are continued claims. And this is the highest that it's been, again, absent that 2020 and 2021 period, which was a very deep recession with a quick recovery. So this is the highest that's been. So the initial claims doesn't look so distressing. The continuing claims looks a bit more. And like I said, in a time when we're seeing that there is very slow job growth and it's highly concentrated in one area, I think this reflects that folks who are unemployed, unless you are in healthcare is more likely to have barriers to entry, right? It's more likely to require education beyond high school or a specific credential to do that job. It's not an easy switch. And so I think that this is representative of people maybe having a harder time finding that next opportunity once they become unemployed. Next slide. Building the layer here. The other thing I wanted to mention on the claims, and you don't have to switch the slide back, is just that the other thing with manufacturing and construction being in the negative all over the past year, we're seeing that the unemployment rate for men in Oregon is about 1.2 percentage points higher than it is for men in their male-dominated industries. For men. So for men, the unemployment rate September is about 5.7%, for women 4.5%.
We have a race
annually. And Oregon's again a small state, it's very limited, so we don't get the full display, but we do get some race and ethnicity data annually from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. So again, other signs to look for potential distress is if we're losing jobs, if there's more people who are unemployed or unemployed for a longer time, if there's a recession or a downturn or some sort of like sustainedly downward trend. We also see job opportunities or hiring demand start to dry up. That has not happened yet in Oregon over the past 4 quarters, and past year. At any given time, Oregon's private employers have had between 50 and 54,000 job vacancies. And if you, again, take out the atypical period in the 21-22 when everything was reopening after COVID, that's a pretty standard level of job vacancies. but we're not seeing the uptick you'd usually get in the fall. And this, I think, represents a lot of what we're hearing anecdotally from employers in the comments of this survey, in the comments in the Federal Reserve's Beige Book, that's like, it's been a really uncertain time and they're kind of doing a wait and see before they add anybody else to their headcounts or lay people off because they've just gone through this like tremendous labor shortages period of time a couple years ago, right? So this data, I think, kind of reflects that and helps illustrate more of the commentary that we're hearing, give it something more concrete. Almost done.
Okay.
You're good. Again, just hitting on manufacturing because we're here and just really highlighting, I feel bad hammering on it, but the struggle of the manufacturing industry. So Oregon's one of only maybe 3 states in the whole country that has a job vacancy survey like this, where we hear from employers throughout the year and they tell us what they're hiring for, what the job opportunities are, how much they pay, what the education and wages are for them. We've been doing that since the beginning of 2013, and this is literally the lowest hiring demand we've seen in manufacturing in that entire 12-year history. It's the lowest it's been since the winter of 2013, and it's built in the summer when it's typically supposed to be higher. It's the lowest. One of the things that we can do to try to normalize that, like how does that relate to the rest of the economy, is that you can look at the number of job vacancies relative to employment and get a vacancy rate for every sector or for the economy. So private sector overall, our vacancy rate as of this summer, so any given time between July and September, was 3%. In manufacturing, it was less than 1%. So I know that there are some highly trained, and I was so heartened to hear the trades thing, you know, earlier, like we've got job openings, we've got, their hiring won't ever be zero because there's always something that we need to replace somebody who's retiring for, or things like that. But just to really put a finer point on how much manufacturing has struggled in Oregon over the past couple of years, I wanted to highlight that for you. Not a happy note to end on, but if anybody's got any questions quickly.
We are actually gonna hold on the question.
Okay.
We have Julia at the airport. We're gonna try to see if we can get.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much.
I can't hear the room anymore. Can you hear me? I can't hear you now. You're all looking at me, but I can't hear you. Give me a thumbs up if I should just start talking. Oh, now I
There
can
we
hear
go.
you. Okay.
Okay, hold on. Let's try it. Okay.
All right.
Right.
How's the sound?
Okay, just from meetings and accessibility, I need to make sure everyone can hear. If anyone cannot hear, then we just have to move it to a different time.
So if you can't hear, raise your hand.
I'll just talk a little bit so you can see if I can hear you.
You can't hear her. Okay. I just don't think it's gonna work. Okay. No, but when she was talking, he couldn't hear her from the distance. And I'm sorry, it just, we can't.
Now I can't hear you again.
Oh, okay.
Oh, now I can.
I can hear.
You can hear that? You can hear that?
It seems like maybe we should just push my presentation.
Yes.
Okay.
And Ian? You need to turn it.
There we go. Okay, so Brooke, can you make your voice?
Yeah, I cannot make my voice. I can't talk loud though. I gave a tour one time and one of the people said, "You are very nice and loud." So hopefully I will channel my inner loudness. Thank you all for having us here. Lovely to see so many people that I know. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Brooke Brownlee. Part of my day job is the Senior Manager of Labor Workforce and Community Engagement at Portland General Electric. I'm also the chair of the Clackamas Workforce Partnership. And I'm here today to talk about my baby, which is the Oregon Clean Energy Workforce Coalition. Anne?
Yeah, my name's Anne McHugh. I am the Clean Energy Workforce Program Manager at WTDB. And I also am the staff for the Education Subcommittee and the Clean Energy Program of Study Work Group, which is focused on establishing a statewide 9th through 12th grade clean energy program study for all Oregon cities.
Next slide, please. For some of you, I think when we first started the coalition, we presented about like we're starting at the WTDB, I think it's 3 years ago, maybe longer. So we have grown a lot since that time. So we were established in really after the passage of House Bill 2021. And we have this need to really align industry together so that we can really think about how we make sure that we have the jobs where we need them, we have the training, all the things. And we recognize that we as PGE cannot do that ourselves. And so we put together this coalition. We did a lot of research and work as we built the coalition. That was one of the things that coming from a workforce board, your dream is to have industry-led coalitions because that means you're doing a good job. And so I channeled that. And then we also did a lot of engagement and research with others across the country. And to our knowledge, we are the only one that exists like we do, but there are similar ones in other fashions. And so we did some research on kind of what has worked well with others, what hasn't worked well, and then how do we make sure that we're not duplicating the mistakes that others have made, and then how do we keep everyone at the table? And one of the primary things that I promised everyone when I met with them, and Anne helped with this promise when she and I were setting this up, was we will actually do something because I think especially in Oregon, and I've been in the workforce space for a long time, we love to talk about all the problems and then maybe we'll start talking about solutions, but we don't actually usually use unsaid solutions. And that was something that I didn't want to do because I didn't want to waste people's time, especially because I was asking a lot of people who are already really busy humans to come and give their time to help us figure this out. So today we have more than 100 members across the state in kind of all the places that touch the energy sector in some way, shape, or form. We have focused our work on the transition of the electric sector. And the reason why that is important is because of that House Bill 2021 connection. When we started, it could have been real big or real broad, right? There's a whole bunch of aspects of the energy sector and climate and all that kind of stuff. And we really wanted to focus it on what we knew that we had the most important. Next slide. I will not read our mission and vision, but in essence, our goal is to really make sure that we're creating this connected ecosystem and making sure that from and I'll talk a little bit more about this from the K-12 system up through employment and training. We have this connected ecosystem, and that is something that has been a disconnect in a lot of places, right? Like you have higher ed doing their thing, you have the K-12 system doing their thing, you have the industry doing their thing, and we wanted to bring all of that together to say, how do we make sure that someone who's starting in the K-12 system in Oregon is starting to learn about energy? What is it? How is it? Why is it important? And most importantly, what are the jobs that exist? Because we have an awareness problem in our industry. So Anne has done a ton of research since she came to the company. And what we have found very consistently is people come to the energy sector mid-career. So, and it's largely because they know someone or they found out about it, right? It is not because when they were in kindergarten, they were like, I want to be a lineman, right? That is, we get less and less. You have like a family member who's a lineman who's talking about how cool it is, and then they potentially want to do that, right? And so that's a problem for us because we can't grow our industry if we're stealing people from industries, right? So that was problem number one. The second was that we had a large number of people who were eligible for retirement, especially on the trade side. And we were not filling the pipeline in the same rapid pace. And so if everybody retired all at once, that was going to be also very problematic. And so we had these two kind of things that we needed to figure out. And then the third thing is like, energy is not really like something that is exciting unless you really know about it, right? So that goes back to that awareness in jobs. Most kids, I think if you ask them about the energy sector, would not be like, it's so cool, it's the place I want to be, right? I have a 14-year-old and she would definitely not say that. And I work in the energy industry. So So how do we do all these things to make it interesting and engaging and really show people that you can do the career path that you want to do and also be part of the energy sector, right? We have almost every career pathway in the energy sector. There's a very small number that we don't. Next slide. So how we set up the framework is the coalition is really kind of the looking at kind of the big broad policy and framework. So what do we need in order for the state to be successful? And then the implementation model is really focused on the local workforce board level. This was really intentional because local workforce boards have the relationships, they know their employers, they have existing partnerships, they have things that are funded through WIOA, et cetera. And so the way that we could leverage other funding streams and ensure that we were having the ability for it to be localized where appropriate was really important. Next slide. And then this was our initial kind of framework for subcommittee work, and I will put an asterisk that we're getting ready to, we're in the process of updating our strategic plan for the next 3 years. And so as we're doing that, we will likely see these subcommittees change to be focused on kind of the pillars within our within our strategic plan now. But what we really focused on is what are the major components of the energy sector. And when we invited people to participate, this was really important for the subcommittee structure in particular, because people who are engaged in the transportation electrification space, many of them do not have any interest in the other parts of the energy sector because it's really focused on transportation, right? And likewise, people who are building things may not have interest in some of the other pieces. And so we wanted to make sure that we provided tables for people to engage, provide information without forcing them to be parts of other things that were less interesting to them. And then that information then flowed to our education subcommittee, which Anne we'll talk more about, and then our reducing barriers subcommittee. And that is really focused on how are we providing access to more people. So we did a study with Echo Northwest last year, and what we found is that in a lot of parts of our industry, you have more male dominance than women represented compared to the population in Oregon, and that the people of color within our industry were largely focused in the lower wage jobs. So we knew that we had to figure out a way to make sure that we were increasing access kind of across the board. Slide. So next one, one more. This is kind of what I already said, but I think this is a really good kind of level setting. We have this goal of House Bill 2021 that has these requirements that require the electric sector to decarbonize and serve our customers in Oregon with 100% clean energy by 2040. That is going to take a lot of investments in order to make that happen. And so in addition to that, then you also have all these other things happening, right? You have buildings for increasing electrification, you see an increase in electric vehicles, et cetera, right? Which is all tied together. Next slide. And so this is that continuum that I was talking about. So we are really focused on how do we get this piece right? Because without that piece, we can't really do the rest of it. And so how are we thinking about ways to engage people into the sector in a way that's really interesting and that they actually think about us as a place that they want to work? Next slide. And then with that, I'm going to pass it over to Anne, who's going to talk about the piece.
So as part of the national reorganization of the career and technical education framework, is anyone in the room, have you seen this cluster diagram before? Great, cool. We can start there. Thank you, Todd. So basically, if you look at Oregon's existing career and technical education programs of study, which are 3 credit pathways that are available and accredited by the state, at the moment, you could look at them as like a set of boxes that don't really connect at all. There's manufacturing, there's automotive, there's marketing, there's healthcare, all of these different things that are all super important and really essential to the economy. What the Advanced CTE organization, which is the national org that provides standards for career and technical education, has done is they have organized all of those disparate sectors into a cluster diagram, which is this circle. And the circle calls out energy for the first time ever. So what's super exciting is that energy used to live on natural resources. There's nothing wrong with that, but it being called out meant that the Oregon Department of Education said that we could go ahead and move forward with this process of creating a statewide program of study focused on the clean energy sector. So that was kind of the bureaucratic process that picked all of this up. And so you can see the maroon box over there is where the energy sector lives. I would argue we could actually put it over in the upper right quadrant where the cross-cutting concepts are, because without electricity, percentage points higher than all other students. So one of the things that we are really prioritizing as a work group is making sure that folks have access to this, so that as we're designing this, it's really centered in learner needs, learner interests, and learner passions, as well as making sure that it's aligned to labor market data and that it's going to lead to access to high wage, high skilled careers. So all of that is super important. And then because we're a coalition that is intending to represent the entire state, we also are designing it with the intention of it being able to be implemented in Burns, in Klamath Falls, in Portland, in Estacada, all of the equal access. So that's been really a big design intention for you to start this process.
I'm just going to asterisk that for a second. That is a key component of the whole focus is this economies of scale that we get by everybody working together at this high level, for even the global messing at the local level. Many of the partners that we have, whether it's small business or education partner, don't have the capability to create something from ground up. And so having the ability to implement frameworks that already exist is super, super important to the success of the project.
And I will say, the education subcommittee met this morning, and we had folks from Klamath Falls and Thunder Valley and the Church on the call. So, and one of the other real intentions of this work is to make sure that even if you aren't physically able to attend the live time, that we engage folks asynchronously as well. So we really are bringing along folks who represent the entire state, which is pretty fun. Next slide. So I am not doing this work alone. There are two really amazing educators who are leading this work. Maddie Schick, who represents Peterson School District, and Chris Breida, who represents PPS, are both career and technical education leaders in the state. Dan Finley, who's at Oregon Department of Education, is making sure that we're following all of the rules in terms of education stuff, and I kind of facilitate stuff behind the scenes. And the coalition is providing kind of the overarching framework for the work to take place. And so we're really working again to have this be student-centered, aligned with technical skills and knowledge that are required for this, and then rooted in collaboration ecosystem across the energy sector. So we are bringing industry voices into the table as we're designing this work, which is really cool. Next slide, please. So again, I won't read all of this to you, but we're really looking to develop a statewide 3-credit program of study focused on the energy sector. And when we convene folks monthly, we are getting folks who are industry experts, we're getting folks who are workforce and labor experts all together to co-design this. And then we're supporting educator leaders to create the instructional materials that will actually be implemented this spring. To enable us to go ahead and get student voice in also at this really early stage of the program design.
I have a few more asterisks to this. That teacher-led curriculum development is also one of the very key important things. Industry is very good at creating their own curriculum that do not actually talk to teachers and then expect teachers to implement them. And I say this as a daughter of a teacher, former teacher. It doesn't work, right? Because we in industry are not kid experts and we are not teacher experts. And so having teachers, having the industry help the teachers with externships, and Anne has done an amazing job of this, bringing teachers in for a week-long experience where they are seeing a whole bunch of different parts of its history, and then using that knowledge to create curriculum that is in alignment with state standards and what works in their classroom is critical to the success of how we're doing this work.
And I think it is a unique thing. I mean, again, if you really look at industry, this was one of the lessons learned, from what we heard from benchmarking was that a lot of the intention was really there, but the actual implementation and getting it into schools failed because there was that lack of engagement with educators on how you actually help something.
Next slide, please. So this is really a systems and ecosystem approach to designing a CTE program. As somebody who had designed and implemented a CTE program at Franklin High School, generally the way that those are implemented in the state of Oregon is a single teacher has a single relationship with a single employer, which means that if the teacher leaves, the program leaves. And this is kind of a first of its kind in terms of how this is being designed and how it's being approached, in that it's an entire coalition of over 100 organizations supporting the creation of the architecture to then support individual teacher leaders to adapt and implement it in their local community in a way that's responsive to labor market needs. Next slide. So right now we're hanging out in the pilot phase. We got funding from the Lemelson Foundation to actually have four teachers do design work this spring and actually get that testing and data from students about the approach. We are planning to use an invention, education, and design thinking framework, which is something that is well-researched and evidence-based and allows us to also do that local customization piece that's such a key part of this work. And the goal is to start with the year 1 class in the fall of next year, which we're super excited about. So these are just some of the key design principles of this work. And we really think that this is an opportunity for us to elevate the teacher voice in this process and really show the expertise that they bring to the table while also connecting them deeply and through relationships with industry.
So what's next? So the big thing that we are working on, which we had a work session on yesterday, excited about, is the creation of a web aid. It is a one-stop shop for all careers within the clean energy space. So there is going to be a whole bunch of pieces that we will share when it's ready, but I think it's a really critically needed thing. Right now, there are 500 different career pathway websites that somebody could go to at any given time. But what we found is that there's not one place that has just something specifically localized to Oregon in the energy sector. And if you want to know more about the energy sector in Oregon, you have to go to 5 different places. And so we want to create that one place. And we're pulling a lot of data from existing sites, right? So we're not recreating our own thing in terms of data. We're using tried and true data that exists and then pulling it in different ways to help create that story. We are also building out career pathways to really show, as part of that website development, when you come in and you say, okay, I'm interested in being an electrician, we'll then tell you where in the state do you get training, what is the training that's required, who in the state hires for that job, so that people have a really good understanding of what that looks like. And then where in their community, if you want to stay in your community, what are the opportunities available? If you don't want to stay in your community, it's available, with the goal of growing our own in Oregon and keeping them here in Oregon. The second is expanding our tables. So we believe in the framework that there's nothing about me without me. And so continuing to look at who's missing. One of the key voices that we know that we need to engage more with is tribes. So we have Confederated Tribes of Warm Springs as one of our coalition members, but we have opportunities to engage the other tribes within the state. And then really looking at what other voices, as we continue to do our work, are we seeing not represented, and how can we find ways for them to be represented? The pilot scheme that we talked about, and then we're going to be doing some listening sessions. We've started some of them already, and we'll continue to do them to really hear directly from workers. What are the barriers? I will say one of the biggest things is that there's a perception that you have to have a college degree for everything. And that's definitely not true. And so those are some of the things that we're really trying to navigate. And then also to help with that awareness piece, like what do people actually think of when they think about jobs in the energy sector? Do they think of a solar installer? Do they think of alignment? How can we help them think about the other things outside of that? And so using that research-based information that really help us do that. And then the last thing I think, like I mentioned before, is our strategic plan. So we had our first strategic plan. We accomplished everything on that list. Mostly we have a few carryover items.
And then this next 3 years, what do we really want to do in order to maximize the coalition's work? And ensure that we keep industry at the table and all of our partners at the table. I have been really pleasantly surprised that we've been able to keep everybody and grow. And I think it is in large part because we are continuing to show that we're doing things, which is the success of an industry coalition model. And that we really center their decision making. So while we as staff kind of help and guide, we're really listening to what industry and our partners are telling us they need and then adapting and modifying. We have a LinkedIn page that we just launched. And I saw you guys have our annual report. I had printed ones and I was so excited to bring them because they're so pretty. And then I promptly left them on my hallway bench as I left my house. And I realized about halfway through. So I'll get them to Anne and then Anne can bring them next time for you have the briefing. And happy to answer the questions. Todd.
Thanks, bro. Thanks, Anna. Great presentation. Really appreciate you being here and sharing.
I was just wondering. Well,
It was so good. I just made you like for fun.
I was just wondering if you could say a little bit more about when you said Lemelson Foundation, I thought of Jobs for the Future.
Oh, yes.
I
Yeah.
thought of National Skills Coalition. I thought of other foundations across the country that get involved in workforce development nationally. And so I was just wondering if you'd say a little bit more about how that all has played out.
Yeah.
With the coalition.
So we are one of 6 regions across the country that are part of the Jobs for the Future Crest initiative, which is a 3-year focus on training and placing people in the clean energy sector. We are the only statewide initiative out of those 6. And it has been a huge honor for us in Oregon as part of the coalition. But what is so great, it has connected us to other communities of practice who are doing similar things, but slightly different things, which has really helped us learn a lot. We had the CEO of Jobs for the Future, which for those of you that don't know, they are a national workforce coalition. They have historically done quite a lot of work with the Department of Labor, U.S. Department of Labor. And so their CEO chose our region as the region to visit and this summer, and then wrote us up in Forbes magazine, which was the highlight of my career. So
I didn't even know it could be on my list.
it was also not on my bucket list previously, but now it is. So I'm very excited. And so I think the benefit of really that opportunity to be at a national scale is the model that we've developed here is being recognized as Oregon has created this model that could be replicated throughout the country. And I think the more that we bring in additional partners, we have the opportunity to continue to establish Oregon as the place for how you do workforce, right? So I think that's a really important component. We also received a Department of Labor grant 2 years ago now that is largely funding a program at some correctional facilities. Coffee Creek was the first one. It's called Impact, and it's in partnership with 3 union apprenticeship programs. And those who are almost ready for release, they have to be within a year of release, have the ability to go through a 12-week program where they are trained in 3 clean crafts that are connected to the energy sector and critical. So ironworkers, cement masons, and bricklayers. And then upon release, they either have deferred entry or direct entry into one of those 3 union crafts. We are starting to see people be released and go into the program. And it's phenomenal. I mean, some of the women, the Coffee Creek program is solely for women because all of the women who are incarcerated in the state are at Coffee Creek. And so we really focused on women at that particular facility. And they are phenomenal. It is the highlight of my month when I talk to each cohort. They bring the most innovative ideas. They think about things totally differently because they're not in the sector, and we need that. We need that innovative thinking of like the people who have done this for a really long time. Oftentimes, you don't necessarily think about the like outside the box because you're so used to the box. And I talked to a cohort a couple of months ago, and I was like, "What do you think about like if you did this, this, and this?" And I was like, "That's genius, right?" So it's just and they're getting paid really good wages while they're learning. And there's been some really great success stories out of that. So that's one. We also have the Skills Coalition really engaged and involved in thinking about how are we connecting the programs that exist through all of the various different FBLA, DECA, et cetera, into our coalition's work and model. So again, thinking about how are you connecting industry and the clean energy sector into those opportunities as well.
Thank you. I want to go back to a few minutes for Gail and Bob if anybody has questions, because we weren't sure on our time previously. So I do want to open it up broadly if there are any questions for Gail and Bob. Or Gail, I have a question about it. Anyone has questions, we have a few minutes for that. I just want to open it up.
I'll just comment, the alignment I talked about with the aging demographic, aging workforce and consumption patterns of that, with the supply and demand side, the programs like this are so important for, like how you spoke about the awareness, I think that's huge.
For the aging workforce piece, I interviewed 150 PGE employees and 20 folks outside of PGE as I onboarded. I was a classroom teacher 2 years ago, so I'm very new to the space. And that's one of the ways that I get up to speed is just really figuring out who's there and who's doing the work and like, how did you get here? And one of the really interesting pieces is so much of our infrastructure is because PGE is over 150 years old. There are literally people who work at PGE who like have made pencil marks in dams that are the single person who know what that pencil mark means. And so it's so critical to get early career folks in the door to learn from these experts when we still have them. And so I think that's one of the things that brings me energy in this work, no pun intended. It's just the opportunity to really do that intergenerational learning and that translation between the experts and the folks who might be new. Because I do think that's why the invention education framework makes so much sense here, is that it is an old industry that is rapidly changing. So we need to give folks the tools to be able to evolve as they go. Any other questions?
So, if you could give advice, to the work that this body is involved in terms of business engagement, as well as other, entities, for example, at the HEC or Department of Education, the consortia, the Future Ready, come to mind that are really in large part trying to better understand needs, supply and demand conundrums that are age old, developing crystal balls to better sort of forecast in this space. Like, I'm really curious, and based on all the things you've learned, I just thought of the quality jobs piece to all this as well. What say you in terms of recommendations, advice, kind of like what you said in the beginning, what's working well?
Yeah.
What maybe isn't or doesn't, and then, thoughts on next step.
I would say the biggest thing that has been a driver of our success was the strategic plans. We built that with the coalition members, and then we've executed on said coalition around the strategic plan. Like I was saying at the beginning, I think a lot of workforce groups, and I'm not saying that it's this one, but like get in this loop of like, there's all these problems and it becomes overwhelming. And so you just talk about all the problems all the time. And then you don't actually do anything to fix them. And so the fixing part is really where collectively groups like this should be engaged in. And so I think that's really important, breaking it down into bite-sized chunks of like, how are we going to fix this little piece, or at least start towards that little piece. And then you gotta make it worth the while for industry. So, I mean, I get invited to a lot of tables, my colleagues get invited to a lot of tables, and if it's not providing value, then generally speaking, we have to prioritize something else. And so that goes back to like, are you actually doing things? Are you taking the time to ask industry what they need and what they're, and then reflect that back to them? I mean, that's just a best practice in any engagement, right? You take the feedback and you show them how you use it or not. So I think that's really important. And then I also think hearing from workers, like hearing from people directly, because again, I think we make a lot of assumptions. And I came into this work with a whole bunch of assumptions of what I thought, and some of them are right and some of them weren't. And so really taking the time to really think about how are we listening to the people who are actually impacted by the policies, programs, the jobs, et cetera. And then are there ways that we can make it easier for them? Because the easier it is to navigate, to be able to take a job, et cetera, the better success that we're going to have. And if people are already struggling in life, and then we're asking them to add some additional thing, it just makes it much harder.
Thank you so much. Thank you. meeting notes from September. We do need a motion to approve this notes, and we need to do the second. So Ken Ben approved, will you second? I'll second. And first or second, all in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? Okay, that is passed. All right, thank you so much. Thank you for the presentations. Thank you for the presentation. So we have some board business to address today. And I have some information to share with you all, which I will do. But first, I'm going to have Venkat talk. I'm asking Venkat to share a little bit, two things. First of all, Venkat has something exciting and fun to share with us, which is but I also would like Venkat to let the board know about a decision he made specifically regarding the committee, and kind of just give the board a little insight into why that decision was made, because I do think it's relevant as it relates to our structural ability and how we interact as a board with expertise with other initiatives. So I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you. Okay, so I've been serving on the STEM Investment Council as chair for the last year or so. And the reason I took that up was because of the STEM crisis that we face in the state. When it comes to when you adjust for demographics, Oregon is the last in the country when it comes to reading scores, and 49th in the country when it comes to math scores. Science is into 49. And so my desire to join the council really stems from where we were at, because there's only one place to go. So there was strategy that we were working on towards an education plan for the next 5 years. Unfortunately, what happened in the process was the governor had asked every agency to make propose budget reduction in under two scenarios, 2.5% and a 5%. And the council works in conjunction with the ODD and HEC. But the proposed budget reductions that were made to the governor's office and to the legislature did not even include the STEM Investment Council. This is a body that's been statutorily established by the legislature to guide the state's STEM investments. And so that felt very wrong, particularly when we're in a crisis when it comes to math and science courses. I come from the technology industry, and when I've interviewed people, one of the things we look for are foundational STEM skills. We want to make sure that they can think from first principles, think critically, solve problems, solve complex technology problems, all of it requires foundational skills and math. So that's just that without consultation of the council putting forward these public adoption. That's wrong for me. So I sent a letter to the heads of the event ask for the commitment on the rest of the like that will not happen, or I decided
And we have some players.
Oh, I'm just still trying to make this work, but maybe this is from your lab. This is an AI lab that's being put together, and it's just a computer on wheels. So it's just a small Jetson computer from NVIDIA. It has a camera, and it can connect to the Wi-Fi network, which is what I'm struggling with today.
It's a little bit wonky. It's my computer is reading and we're not local. It's very good. Yes.
So, but the faculty at the lab was having some trouble setting it up. So I think that was all the temporary videos. Some things, and I'll show you a little wiggle, but connect to the Wi-Fi network. Can you scale 5 minutes and do a little tickle? Can you use your water model? Oh, sorry. So the way it works is there is a small Jetson computer. This is like a Raspberry Pi for people who know single board computers, but it has a GPU. So it can do complex object detection, space recognition tasks on the GPU. And it only consumes about 15 watts of power, and it sits on top of a board, a carrier board that provides network access and some batteries, two separate motors. So the computer can detect how much of the motor is doing. The camera will detect objects and people or line, you can follow a line. All sorts of tricks. So this is similar to self-driving cars. It teaches students the basics of autonomous vehicles. It's significant. It's very significant in terms of technology adaptation. Because where we are going with AI is it started with perceptive AI, where computers got superhuman at recognizing objects and images. Then we went to generative AI, where computers can generate text, video, music, images. Now we're in a phase of reasoning AI. So we have reasoning models where computers can think and help. And this is where the biggest impact is actually towards education. We can engage with students in a very Socratic manner and take the course material and engage with the student based on their interests and these students that they have. We're seeing the huge benefits of deploying these tools in the platform. And where we're going next is physical AI. Where we have humanoid robots that can go face to face in very harsh environments. The biggest benefit I see in the near term of studying this fluid is in the healthcare space. We've had our elders have 24/7 support in terms of their patient monitoring, and something that is infinitely patient in the distance for people for the neighborhood.
Thank you so much, Venkat. It turns out some folks online couldn't hear Venkat. So can we confirm
If they can hear me? Okay.
Well, I'm gonna
See, that's what happens.
All right, everyone.
Put it right here.
My goodness gracious.
All right, so hopefully everybody can hear me. So I wanted to have Venkat go first because I feel like Venkat's conversation is a perfect encapsulation of the issue for me. So what we saw in this conversation is Venkat is somebody who has years of experience in technology. NVIDIA, anybody ever heard of $1 trillion company called NVIDIA? 5 trillion. Okay, not 1 trillion, 5 trillion. And, his expertise and all of your expertise on this board is significant, and workforce is clearly related to economic development. It is related to prosperity. It is related to all of these discussions. And yet I have been frustrated is a word about the way this board has been utilized in those areas in the state. And for those who were online who didn't hear, Venkat had mentioned that for what's the proper name of the council? The STEM Investment Council, the zeroing out of the money for that happened without input, without conversation. And then when he wrote a very good and detailed letter, there was not a proper response. Okay. So that to me encapsulates why I have made a decision I have made that I'm sharing with you all, is that I am resigning from the board and as the chair. And I am doing that not because of the work that you all have done. You all, as board members, have been doing a yeoman's job of trying to figure out where you can have impact. But as somebody who has run boards, this is not the only board I run, I am incredibly mindful of people who are busy. You all are busy, you have things you're doing, and I want to make sure that I am able to take that energy and ability toward a constructive end. And I have become increasingly frustrated that that is not possible. Now, that doesn't mean that my intention is to blow up the board and we should all run out of here with our hard hats on. My hope is that people continue to try to figure out a way. But for me, as I look at a cost benefit analysis, so I'm a small business owner in the state. I have an infinite amount, I'm sorry, a finite, not infinite, a finite amount of time. And I have to ask myself, with my finite amount of time, I have to have things that are working in a way that I feel balance out the time I'm taking, right? And for me at this point, it's just not there. And there have been several things, for instance, and I think, and I sent a email letter to Sarah. I'm happy to share with the board. I didn't share ahead of time because I didn't want to undo. But even on today's, tour, we heard about the impact of Future Ready. Future Ready started, incubated in this board. I have been on this board 9 years. Yeah, 9 years, close to 10. Okay. I remember when the board started to shift to more committee work, working on specific issues, pulling things together. Todd and the team have done an incredible job over the years. Ken as board chair, Ann as board chair. And that work, and it is not a petty issue for me. The way that work, quite frankly, got away from us, separate from us, is something I still have a problem with. I'm just keeping it 100. And as it relates to this board's ability to interface on broad issues, because workforce, prosperity, workforce, and other issues. So we have the governor's workforce or prosperity roadmap that I go to this meeting that I don't know anything about, and I get there, and Venkat and I are there, and we have had no input in it, nor, and it's not me, we, each of you have expertise and knowledge. And I'm trying to figure out how workforce and prosperity happen without our participation. I'm just trying to understand that. And then there are other things such as the Economic Leadership Council, I got the title wrong. Neither Venkat nor I received an invitation to this event, right? So I guess my question has become, what am I doing, right? And it has been a level of frustration I know some of other of you have had as you've tried to interface, as you've tried to move things forward. And I think the state has to make a decision, which is not to say that nothing is happening. As we talk about the apprenticeships, as we talk about the work, but we have this, we were just talking about institutional knowledge. Ken knows the guy we just went on a tour with for the apprenticeship, and we have the knowledge, and just some things as a person who's run the board, some things I just, I still remember a conversation we had where Kim brought up the issue of how do we work with, the current administration. And I felt that was poo-pooed in a way that was not appropriate for the level of knowledge and skill you have. And I didn't care for that. There are things like that build on things, right? And so for me, as I look at my finite amount of time and what I think the best use of that time is, I have become unconvinced that this is it. And I had not wanted to blow up your meeting or to blow up the event, but I am a person who is into radical transparency. And so I don't believe in, behind the back or, da 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 da. I said what I said to you, behind you, on the side of you, all the ways, right? And so it is important for me to be transparent with you all about why my decision was, not mediated by somebody else, not da da da. And again, it is not to say that I want you all to jump up and run away. I would hope and I would want that my letter and Venkat's letter would find their way to the governor. That's what I would hope. And that people would look at those and look at the structural questions we've asked to take them seriously about moving forward. And sometimes somebody has to jump on a grenade to move things forward. And well, I seem to be that somebody in a lot of spaces. So whatever, it's what I do. So sometimes you need a kind of a good shake, and somebody has to be willing to do that. And I guess at this point, that is what I am willing to do. So that means that this will be my last meeting, my last time chairing. Venkat will step into chairing until he has to write a letter, but no, he won't write another letter. He'll step into chairing, and then we'll look for another vice chair at this point. But to the extent that I can be helpful, that there is this hard work, and the hard work of the staff and all of you, real work, has been appreciated. But as you know, boards and institutions exist on multi-levels, right? There's the institutional work the staff does. There's the committee work you all do. Then there's that policy influence level. And that is the level I'm having a problem with. And as the board chair, that is my responsibility. And so that is my decision. So I wanted to leave time at the end for questions about the STEM Council, questions about this, so that people do not feel that this is something they didn't, they don't know or understand. So, yes, hands are up. Yes, hands.
Down on the grenade to push this work forward. My observation about life these days is that crises like this today, they go tomorrow. So let us not let this go to waste and make sure that this does get elevated. And I think the lack of response and frankly respect for both of your outreach to say, hey, pay attention over here, means that we need to do something different in order to get attention. So I don't know what that is. I'm happy to help with that. Particularly since I'm retired, so I don't have to.
Yeah. I gotta still build some hours. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Get some attention, or to say, okay, I guess it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
But let's not let this die off. So
I agree.
don't know what that looks like. I think the letter is appropriate. And I'm happy to sort of see working together. And I do want to make sure that it's also understood that you guys were doing an amazing
Yes.
job.
Yep.
That is really about, what is the same line vis-a-vis workforce.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Steve?
So. But didn't vote me. I have found in my experience, I wear 3 hats. I'm a member of the Workforce Talent Development Board and have a research and consulting firm. And then because construction was left out of Future Ready Oregon, except for pre-apprentice, I formed my own consortium. So I've been wearing 3 hats, and my consortium was led by business, but it included all sectors, but did not have any governance. So it solved that problem. So my consortium is merging into NAMAC, which is the National Association of Minority Contractors. So they will be the only minority business-led consortium, and we have to fight to get back to the table and be recognized by the state. So been wearing those three hats. So where the WTD comes in for me is, first of all, when I first got into the industry, it gave me credibility. Those that didn't really know how the hierarchy really worked, but because of the three hats that I'm wearing, the last thing I'm hanging my hat on for WTDB is our role is to advise the governor legislation on policy. Well, I've been on the board for 3 years, so I've never done either one. So in January, there will be a legislative packet going to the governor's office for initiative that we've been working on to make construction on the job training a fourth lane in the state's official workforce system. Just because currently 73% people that do the training, the recruitment, training, and mentoring are the contractors, and they're not recognized within the state workforce system when it comes to allocation of research and cross-sector partnerships. So we're working with that. So I think that we have to be proactive in our roles and not sit back and do business as usual. So, like I said, I'm going to take up the statutory responsibility we have is to advise the governor. But then the way you advise, you have to advise so that it will actually, when the governor office sees it, it's a serious packet. And the legislatures, when they receive it, they'll recognize, no, this is a serious, and the stakeholders that are behind it, they will recognize that this is serious. So, I'm counting on my cover letter saying I'm on the Workforce Talent Development Board and I'm exercising my statutory responsibility. Here it is. So, like I said, I have a unique framework because I wear those three hats. And yes, if it comes down to my consulting and the consortium and WTDB for conflict, WTDB goes. I want to see if I can work with all three, but if it comes down to it, yeah, that goes because the other two add greater value to solving the problem.
To be a value. Pringles.
Julia, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Kathy has a question, or you have your hand raised. And you're on mute. Oh, there you go.
There we go. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate, Sherry, everything you've done. And that we're at a grenade saving place is extremely troubling. I think I've been on the board just a smidge longer. And I think in our last meeting a few months back, we picked up the vibes. It was already an undercurrent, but it became more apparent. And I'm extremely troubled by it as well. Back in 2017, 18, 19, we were on an upward trajectory with this board. That's what, exactly to your point, Future Ready Oregon, and really starting to convene National Governors Association meetings and setting up the Talent Summit and all of these pieces. And then in later years, to feel like everything we did just either wasn't acknowledged, wasn't wanted, or even, frankly, it was just like, get back in your lane. Let's just focus on WIOA. So I'm sorry that it's reached this point, and I appreciate your professionalism and your candor, and I commend you for it. And I wonder how we as a board send a very clear signal to our, beyond the governor, our legislative leaders about how do you expect to achieve a prosperity roadmap when your workforce and talent development board is put in the corner. We have state members on this board. I'd like to ask the question, like, what's their intent around this? Are we a WIOA group, or are we really about advise and consult? I think it was Steve was your name, as you said, like, we're not being asked. And when we speak up, we're being told no. Or we're not even being told that there's a meeting and we're being pulled into it like you described. There's an undercurrent that I really think is underserving our population.
Yes, thank you so much, Kathy. Thank you for that history, because that's true. We were on this upward trajectory. Yes. Oh, wait, I gotta get.
Thanks for bearing with us.
Sherry and then Kat, I really appreciate what you've done for the board and for the state. And it's sad to me when you have good people that want to contribute and they don't get the recognition or the chance to even have a conversation with the people who have asked you to be on this board. So I apologize for that. And I share your concern. I've been here under three administrations, and I can give you a little bit of background what happened under all three of those. Under Governor Kitzhaber, he had a very, very engaged policy advisor on workforce, very, very close personal friend, actually, that was very engaged in workforce and drove workforce policy, but was also very concerned about what I thought and what the rest of the board thought at that time. And that was when he was leaving the office. That's when I became chair of the office and of the board. And honestly, I had never experienced anybody in politics before. I had been elected to a PCC's board, so it was all new to me. It's not something I wanted to do, but it was a learning curve. So I thought that's the way all governors and this is the way the board would function. Then under Governor Brown, things changed completely. I had one meeting initially with the governor, and then it all kind of went away. And then it happened that the employment director was fired, not this one, two or three before the prior employment director, 3 days before a board meeting. And it hit the press. Nobody in the board was acknowledged. I got a phone call immediately after the governor fired the director, and she was crying. She was upset. And she said, I know you know why I was let go. And I said, Lisa, I have no clue. I have no idea. And I asked the policy advisor at that time to, fill me in. And I got no call until the morning of the meeting. And so in my frustration, same as yours, and I started the meeting almost identically the way you're finishing the meeting. And then I said, we have so much expertise of people giving up their time, and yet I feel like we're ignored, and there's no true purpose to have these meetings if we're having them in a bubble, if we're not allowed to do what the board is supposed to do. So I immediately asked for a vote, and I said I want a letter going to the governor that I want the governor to start attending these meetings either through her policy on a regular basis and start having input. And honestly, I thought that was my last meeting. I didn't think I was resigning. I thought I was going to be fired. And a matter of fact, I was threatened afterwards that was going to be happening. And over time, I did work with the governor, and I even decided. I started working with the National Governors Association, and I started talking to some of the members, and some of those people are still some of my closest friends and the relationships that I've developed. And through their guidance, I started talking to them, and they said, you don't need a governor. You need to start driving policy. And these boards are by statute required to have legislators on our board. We had Senator Demrow, who was very active. Senator Reardon was or Representative Reardon. We had Senator Hovey was active. We had Kaiser Thatcher. Senator Thatcher was active. And that's why even at one point we changed the policy to be not only advisors to the governor, but to advisors to the legislative branch of government, which are supposed to be actively involved in this board. So I started pushing from that end and driving policy from there. And some of the stuff that we did with Venkat going to the National Governors Association about AI and bringing him in, I mean, we got recognition from a state. And then on top of that, Todd and I and my wife and Karen Hummelfar brought the NGA to Oregon. And that the governor could not avoid. That was attention that was brought to her state, and she was forced to address it. And from there, the whole attitude changed. But it wasn't an easy process. And I hate the fact that this board has to always say, look at me, look at me, look at me. This board should be the recognized power when it comes to workforce. And I realize, and this is true with even Governor Brown, and I see it today, is these prosperity task force, even in some degree, Future Ready Oregon are driven from a political aspect in that there's an election coming up and I have to deal with that election. And in order to do that, I'm going to do something splashy. And some of it doesn't require a task force. Some of that, as an executive officer, can take immediate action. And so I look at it and go, this type of stuff is smoke and mirrors. And I want to see real action driven. And if you're really concerned about Oregon, take action now. Don't take action 6 months down the road. Do it now. And you're right. Business people don't have time for this.
No.
And so it's important to understand. I'm saying business people, but all of you on this board don't have time for things that don't mean anything. So I really, truly appreciate what you do. Appreciate what Venkat had done, Ann has done, all the members on this board, because you will make a difference. We just have to get that attention. And this is part of the way you do it.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. Do we have any other questions? I'm like, oh, Ann again, Ann, we're sure you can go over there. So you're going to get your steps.
I am going to get my steps in. There you are.
The one thing I do want to acknowledge is we do have a couple of new members in the room who are probably like, what the heck is happening right now? And so I don't want to speak for you, Sherry or Venkat, but I would say, please don't panic or run for the hills.
Right.
This is like part of we go forward and then we stall out. We go forward and then we stall out. And we find ourselves because of, I don't know, lack of attention or busyness or other priorities or lack of focus, whatever, in this place. I guess I want to say, like, hang in there. Because there's amazing things that this group has done, but we're in this in between. And it resonates with me that Sherry's like, she's got a lot of things to do. And if it's not adding value, what's the point for her? So I get it. It makes me sad. And Venkat, I'm gracious that you're stepping into this. And I'm also sorry about the STEM Council, but I wanted to acknowledge that there is some amazing things this group has accomplished and will continue to accomplish. But we're in the lull period again, that we have to get ourselves out, or we have to, I don't know what, get ourselves out of, or demand we're out of, or
So I
something.
can play off of that a little bit then. More for the sake of our newbies. A lot of work that happens here, well, maybe not a lot. Some of the work that happens here actually makes its way all the way to the front line. And so, and that's the part that I get excited about in terms of being able to serve on this board. Team Oregon Build, which was made up of the Workforce and Talent Development Board, Oregon Housing and Community Services, and the third one, Department of Ed, pooled some funds to help high school kids around the state build shed units for communities that have been burned out and so forth. And I run a CBO. I'm really nobody here. I bow to all of the expertise in the room, but it is. I mean, it's really cool. Yeah. So a couple summers ago, we partnered with Team Oregon Build to help high school kids recover credits, math and English through a building program that we started a couple summers ago. But that's a connection that started at this high level. And I'm just trying to share how it plays down to the front line. We impacted that summer 24 young people who came into the program for 8 weeks, committed their summer. They built 12 8 by 16-foot shed units that then went to local communities that needed them. And they all got their high school makeup credit in math and English. And that summer with that group, over 8 weeks, we actually had 100% attendance, right? And so that some of the things that we do here do actually have an impact, right? The Work Readiness Committee that I also serve on with Charlie, and maybe he'll invite you guys to come check it out. But we're moving OES further than I ever thought we could move Oregon employability skills. I mean, it blows my mind when I think about some of the first meetings I was having with Sherry Clark, where she was conceptualizing and trying to figure out how to get that thing going, to where we are today, where we've had some state investment in that. So, I mean, you kind of rattle the cages where you can. And I'm kind of glad that because I'm an ex officio, I won't ever be on the track to end up in a board chair. But I appreciate it absolutely is. And I appreciate the work that you guys have done over the years. I appreciate this recap because I forgot some. Agnes was amazing. She absolutely connected us to the system, right? So we sometimes, at least from a ground perspective, we take what we can get, we grab onto some of the pieces, we make them work for us however we can. Sometimes we're working around the system, inside the system, but we do what we can, right? And we actually move some things.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to share that.
That's absolutely true. And that's why I said this board exists on multiple levels. It exists on that direct level, it exists on the communal sharing, but it also exists on the policy influence level. And that's a level that we are a bit stuck at. So
Melissa Drew.
Melissa?
Thank you, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. So I'm going to share a little bit of information, at least from the agency that I work for, which is Business Oregon. And first, I want to preface by saying that one of the most exciting things for me is the connection between economic development and workforce. And it's one of the reasons that when my director asked to serve in the capacity of this board, I was really excited to do so. I worked with Todd when I worked out in Eastern Oregon in the region, and I predominantly worked with private business, and we always had workforce development conversations around the need for skill, the need for availability, and all the important things that lean into workforce. I'm going to speak a little bit on the Prosperity Roadmap because if you heard the presentation or you've read the document, you will see that Business Oregon is going to be delivering a statewide economic development plan. I can reassure you or panic you today by saying that we're not leaving workforce out of that discussion. And over the course of the summer, we had done a multitude across the state road show meetings with private business and economic development partners. And we were really gathering more information around modernizing our incentive tools. We wanted to be looking at some of our own legacy programs to get a reevaluation of what are those programs still doing good things for business as they were intended when they were stood up. And some of them were stood up in the mid to early 1980s. So really wanted to just take a look at them, get feedback on how they were still beneficial or what we could be doing to modernizing them. And the discussion led all different places, but one of the places it led was obvious for us that Oregon could benefit from a statewide economic development plan, and that all the pieces and parts have to work together in order for us to be an effective and impactful state. So I wanted to speak today because it is concerning the feelings that are being shared around the table. I can certainly appreciate the transparency and understand the value of time, but these kinds of things do concern me because workforce is definitely an important component for economic development. And so when our agency gets ready next week to put out a draft framework document, I want you to know ahead of time that that document is, again, one, a draft, two, that it was mostly developed out of these modernization conversations that we had around the state, three, that there's 8 sections within this framework, and one of them is workforce development. And when you read that draft, what you're going to see is that we're listing what was aired as opportunities for the state to address, policy being one of those that's in there, and policies throughout this document. It's not just leaning into workforce, but you'll also see in there vision for what we hope that we can do as a state together collaboratively. And the last thing you'll see what we hope is the partnership that would be leading the work or partnering in the work. And I guess for me, I ultimately would see this board and other workforce partners leading that section of that document. Now, I know it seems crazy that you're hearing from me about this and we're talking about releasing something next week, but we're only releasing next week what we gathered throughout these road shows, and we're really putting more on the table for more discussion and more opportunity to collaborate. It is far from a finished place, and it's also not anything that I think should ever finish. It should be ongoing, and we should be collaborating more. And so I could not sit here in good conscience and listen to all the good conversation and the reminders of the good work that this board has done. But I wanted you to know that is coming, but it's coming from my space as the opportunity for this board to lean in and say, what do you really want it to look like? How do you want to move the dial in the workforce development area of this framework? So I'm happy to take comments, questions, anything you'd like to say, but I truly come from a place of heart and collaboration, and I hope it will be taken that way.
Thank you for that. I do want to say that I would love for us to have a little space before we move to the work group element of this. So if folks, once I am gone, want to move to the work group element of this, I think that's fine. And I think to Ann's point, there is still the matter of making sure that this opportunity for clarification happens. I so appreciate that. But it does speak to my broader issue with the fact that I am now hearing about it today. So, but I appreciate that. So we're going to be moving where it goes.
Just one quick question. I just want clarity. Are you drafting a letter to the governor?
I did. I drafted an email that it's a letter that I sent to Sarah, and
okay.
Aaliyah is going to send it out to you all.
Can I?
I started there.
I would like to make a motion. And that letter is not only just coming from you, but is the sentiments of the entire board or coming from the board?
Why don't you all read it? because Lilia will send it, and if
Okay.
you're so inclined, then that.
But-
you can do that.
But I think in all fairness, since our mission or our mission statement changed to not only advise the governor, but the legislative branch, I think it should go also to the Speaker of the House, and it should also go to the Senate President. Because I think we need to inform the legislative branch that we exist to some degree too, which sadly, I don't think is being accomplished right now. So,
Well, like I said, I sent it to Aaliyah and Todd, and they'll send it out to everybody, and you all can take a look at it.
Okay.
And feel free to do it. It's public record. at this
Yeah.
point, So you do it.
no, maybe that's something Venkat can help us lead going forward, but I would love to see something going out that it's not just Sherry Dunn, but it's also sentiment of the board.
Thank you. And hi, everyone. I know I haven't even gotten. My name's Andrew Stolfi. I'm the very new, never been fired employment department director. I think this is the second meeting I've been able to join, and just wanted to share one or two things. You know, I'm very new to this. I'm very new to the workforce system as well. I spent years running a different agency focused on consumer protection and as the state's insurance commissioner. But I'm learning this area very, very quickly. But I can't really speak to what had happened in the past or even kind of what exactly might be going on now, but want to maybe talk to the future a little bit, because I appreciated hearing the perspectives that have been shared, and to me, to a new member of the committee, what I'm hearing is a real desire to increase engagement and to really focus greatly, even more so, on the state's workforce development mission, and that's really heartening to me. And I look forward to participating in that effort with everyone here. And I can't speak for the governor broadly speaking, but I do want to share one thing in taking this role at OED, the kind of a discussion that we'd had and a focus that she'd asked me to have. So in discussing whether to come over, governor is really clear to me on two things. The first is to focus OED and to do everything we can to improve our customer service mission more broadly. That's, across all of our programs, unemployment insurance, paid leave, and our job centers, of course, as well. And the second thing she was very clear to me on is to refocus the agency and our efforts on the state's workforce development and our role, OED's role, in workforce development. Saw that, and I saw that as I was learning more about the agency, that there was a real opportunity there to increase and refocus our efforts and the state's efforts overall, I think, on workforce development. So I'm really looking forward to that. We're maybe in January or so, I'll be able to share some really concrete recommendations and action plans we're working on. I know we had conversations with a lot of people on the board, with local boards, but I think 5,000 or 6,000 individuals and organizations in doing an organizational review and coming up with a long set of recommendations, customer service, and a set per the governor's direction on improving our workforce centers and improving the state's workforce delivery system overall. So I look forward to sharing my thoughts in that area with the board. And again, I'm forever the optimist. So I'm hearing a lot of energy around really engaging going forward. And I can promise you that OED is going to be a big partner in that. Thanks. Yeah, of course.
So first of all, Sherry, sorry to hear the frustration. I'm not sure, Ken, if I've been on here longer or you've been on here longer. But Ken and I and others have gone through multiple iterations of the Oregon Workforce Investment Board. I was a member of the Oregon Talent Council, ETech. I left the state for 5 years because I got chased out by came back in and then decided in retirement that I wanted to do something that would make a difference for Oregonians. And so knowing Duncan and knowing Todd, the two of them must have known I was going to be retiring because the two of them said the same thing. We'd really like, excuse me, like to bring action to the Workforce Talent and Development Board. And so that was the drive, and the instrument was then the employability skills, which is now my passion. I think what I wanted to share in light of the comments so forth is that we have an identity crisis as far as a board of understanding. I don't know if the general business population in this state has a clue what the Workforce Talent and Development Board is. A, they don't. B, I'm not sure that anybody within the state of Oregon could put their fingers on who does have responsibility. But by the way, I think most of them would point to the employment department. I mean, that's what it's all about, right? It's the employment department. I appreciate Melissa's conversation in regard to economic development. And I've said the same thing as I'm working with foundational skills that everybody is struggling with entrance into the workforce as well as their own workforce. And that is, we don't know how to talk. We don't know how to collaborate. We don't know how to actually appreciate the differences in the workplace. And that 10 skill matrix that was created in the rubric is all about that. What has attracted to me is action. And I've been reminded recently of a statement that conflict creates the gateway to transition. And if that's the case, sorry for the grenade, but at the same point, conflict does not mean us arguing with one another. It means that something's not working. It's not jibing and so forth. And it's something you don't run away from. It's something you charge ahead on. And I think we do that in a number of ways. We either do it by saying, thanks, Governor. We really would have loved to have had your opinion, your voice, and your advocacy, but we're pushing this sucker forward. I've seen that done with the ETech. I saw that done with the Talent Council. I saw that done, quite frankly, Venkat, with the things that you've been doing as well, of really trying to push that which is good forward. I've also seen the power of the Workforce Talent Development Board being a network of amazing talent. That hallway conversation that Tony was referring to earlier, that literally was a hallway conversation from the Talent Summit, I believe. Is that correct? That was at the Talent Summit. Yep. And it was the ability to take a construction program and say, we need to do this. And these are young people that we can help. And oh, by the way, these are the skills that they need. He didn't mention it, but all of those students went through multiple elements through the Kroc Center, combined community-based organization with the iBuild program. And all of those students came up with skills. Don't look at me. I'm an emotional person, but that guy and myself cried in the middle of this program because the students, we made an impact. We saw it today here, making an impact. So I guess what I would do is I would challenge us all to say this is an identity crisis. And I think it does need some strength, Ken. And my sense is it needs not just a letter. It really needs a follow-up. I believe it also needs a follow-up with some agency heads. And quite frankly, one of them is the HEC. The other one is probably ODE, where I've heard we've got a community schools program, which means industry, parents, and kids. Those are great foundational pieces for us to be able to drive on. But I think we've got to understand where we sit within the system. We don't have any fiscal responsibility, which is a problem. It's a problem because what's happened then is that we have the workforce partnership that's out there in 9 different regions in the state, in some cases doing 9 different things across the state. And they're not necessarily doing it in partnership with the Workforce Talent and Development Board. That's not a criticism, it's a reality. And so that's an identity crisis. We need to understand where we sit within the ecosystem and then work from there. So I would urge members, particularly the new members, to lean in, don't lean out. this is the conflict that I think can create some great discussion for transition. And maybe that's where we start. Maybe we have a voluntary conversation among us to do some brainstorming, and then we move the ball forward. Thanks.
And can you check and see if there's anybody else online? My computer died, so I don't know if anybody has a question. Okay.
Nope.
So this is the employment department. So like the reports that that are given that deal with the short term, when the workforce development board, we're looking at solving long-term problems. And so it's really important to understand long-term, like what are the actual shortage of workers 5, 10 years out, so that we can work backwards from there to start putting things in place to address that. So like, with construction, our shortage out 10 years is significant, which then affects the governor's housing initiative. So, for me, I want more data on what are the long-term gaps, because that's a long ramp up to address those type of numbers, that those of us that are buried in them know just how big the problem is.
So I don't, oh, yes, Todd.
I just want to say, as I look around the room, I have some pretty amazing relationships with a lot of you as the staff person to this entity. I've been here for a little over a decade. And so when I think back to the people who are sitting around the table, I think I pretty much have a relationship with all of you, even the two newer women. Thank you for being here, and I look forward to working with you. But I just reflect on the amazing people that are sitting here, whether you're private sector, I'm sitting here looking at Steve. We have an Oregon State basketball star who played for the Trailblazers, now is a businessman, and he's trying to help Oregon. Why? Because he loves Oregon. He loves the people. He's an Oregonian. I look at Lisa. The work you're doing in bioscience is amazing. Ann Mercero, we've become really good friends, and you were great in your role at PGE as HR director and VP of HR and diversity, equity, and inclusion, if I got that right. And then we have a new person in Diane, who came from Intel with amazing experience. So another great, business experience mind. And then Tony is incredible. I've known you for a long time. I can go all the way around this room to Venkat, to Charlie. We've known each other for a long time, to Gail, to Bob. I'm getting to know Andrew, Ken. I've known you for a long time. We're very good friends, and you care very much about the people and the workers and the business community, and me as a public servant. I know you care about me. And I know you care about Oregon, and you care about the people who work here. Adrian, Aaliyah. I mean, I could go up, Brooke. There's my point isn't all that, but Clay, I see you. I just saw you. You too. My point is that these are amazing people we have sitting at this table, and there's so much amazing work that we've done and that lies ahead. So all that to say, Sherry, I so appreciate all the I was just thinking back to when I first met you when you were at Dress, and I came to recruit you and was so excited when you joined the board. And I can't say enough about everything that you have done for a decade to try and change the trajectory of what you and I inherited on a Delta that was like this for many years. And without your leadership as a board member, then as vice chair, and now as chair, that never would have been possible. So from top of head to bottom of my heart, I just want to say thank you.
I appreciate that, Todd. For me, it was very interesting because when I came on the board, we did not have a lot of diversity. We didn't have a lot of racial diversity.
That's a really good point.
And we did not have a lot of gender diversity. Right. And we did not integrate a lot of wraparound conversation. And that was my workforce background at Dress, which was wraparound, like what else helps it work. And then I was struck by the presentation about the aging population, which I did say to one of the co-chairs of the Governor's Prosperity Roadmap, where's the big swing? Because population and age is directly related to access to childcare. And when we look at a state like New Mexico, which I'm not talking about preschool for all, I don't know what's going on in Multnomah County, but I'm talking about how New Mexico has decided to put their dollars down on universal childcare, not just for low income, for everybody, as a enticement for businesses and young people. Well, I've been talking about that since I've been on the board. So that's what happens when you divorce voices from overall process, right? Because that is in fact a prosperity piece, but it's not in the plan, right? It's not in the roadmap. And so these are the kind of things that I wanted to bring when I came on. And Todd and I have developed such a great relationship with all of our illnesses and allergies, other problems, and, and the NGA, having the NGA here, that was such a big deal. It raised Oregon's elevation nationally. And that's always a good thing, no matter the administration. We do want to be seen. We want people to know what we're doing. So all of these things, Clay's hard work and Julia when she was staffing, and and I was very clear, and once Aaliyah has her computer back, she'll send you the email I sent out. But I wanted to be very clear with that staff have done a yeoman's job of trying to make those connections, to make it work, to get us into rooms and to get us places. I do not think the board realizes how much work they do behind the scenes on data and connections and to make it happen for us. And so part of my frustration is also that I can be frustrated on behalf of Todd and Clay in a way that they might not be able to be, but I can be frustrated on their behalf for the amount of work that they put into this. So yeah, I just appreciate everyone. And I have learned so much over these years. And I agree. And as I said at the start, the board operates on multiple levels. So that does not mean there is not work to be done. It doesn't mean that there aren't things that can happen. But from this other level, there is real work to be done. And so that's the whole goal.
It's a good thing here, Sherry. Now that you're not a board chair or a member, you can advocate to your heart's content.
Yeah.
So go out and get them.
But so unless we have any other questions, I want to give you a little time back and let Aaliyah get the email out.
Do we want to announce the figure offered to?
Oh, I don't know if that's still a good offer. I don't know. I don't want to do it because he's not here. So
I don't know what the.
So go ahead.
Well, the two gentlemen that took us on the tour and were so excited to keep showing us and showing us and showing us in spite of the 1 o'clock start, which we tried really hard to make happen, but apologies, we just couldn't quite make it. I asked the question because they really wanted you to see a little bit more down that way on the dock. Yeah. If we finished early or by 4 o'clock, if anybody had any interest, because they really want to show us, which is just super cool, passionate about this place, they would do it as long as we let them know by 4 o'clock.
Yeah. So if anybody wants to do that, let us know. And I actually want to just tie this up with a workforce history discussion. So we are here at where ships, the Kaiser shipyards, right? And some of you may know, but many may not know that the Kaiser shipyards were one of the enticements that brought the second and largest wave of African Americans to Portland. That is how many historical Black families came to Portland. They came to work, in fact, in the Kaiser shipyards. And the other thing that we saw during World War II that happened, and we were asking about women welders, well, there were women welders. There were women welders during World War II. And because of the primary employment group, which would be white men, though 2 million Black men served in World War II, but that the primary group was out, it turned out that employers had to hire women and people of color in larger amounts to do this work. So that skilling happened. And then when those men returned, they were divested of their employment. So when we ask ourselves how we get someplace economically, and also when we ask ourselves, what can the workforce do? Turns out the workforce can do what it want to do when it has to. And it doesn't do what it doesn't want to when it doesn't want to, right? So the workforce found a way to integrate women to build these ships. They built those ships, right? In large part, right? And so we really want to keep that spirit that the workforce can do if we push it to do. It's really a matter of will, not ability, right? So anyway, that's my final talk. All right, well, we are adjourned, and you can go see a dry dock if you want.